In order to use Internet Explorer Enterprise Mode, you'll need to first create your site list, enable the Enterprise Mode feature, and then configure settings so that Enterprise Mode can access the site list. An administrator will need to create a global site list using the Enterprise Mode Site List Manager. They can then add website and web URLs to the Site List Manager. In practice, you take a log file dump from your Edge firewall and then see which websites are being used by Internet Explorer. You can then bulk out the URLs by uploading them from a text file or XML file. Once the list of websites has been validated, you can then save the list as an XML file and make it accessible to your client devices via shared location so that it can act as a global list. Let's drop onto our demo PC and see how to create an enterprise site list. First, I'll need to download the Enterprise Mode Site List Manager from the website on screen. I'll run the tool. Accept the terms and then complete the setup wizard. Once the installation is completed, I can launch the tool. And here we can see a really simple interface where we can add website URLs. On the bottom left-hand corner, I'll click Add, and then type URLs manually into the system. We can see in the lower corner the compat mode and open in. These are useful as these allow you to dictate which tool will open the website. For example, we can choose various enterprise modes and document modes for compatibility. We can also specify the browser that will be used, such as Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge. For Microsoft websites, I'll leave the default mode and specify Microsoft Edge and click Save. The URL is validated and added to the list. This time I'll add Hotmail and choose a compatibility mode. I want Hotmail to be opened in Internet Explorer 11. I'll click Save, confirm the settings, and click Yes, and the login page for Hotmail is now added. We can also upload a list of URLs instead of adding them manually. One at a time, I'll click File and click Bulk Add from File. I'll locate my text file and click Open. Here we can see that a number of websites have passed validation, and we've added a number of the websites did not pass validation, and we'll need to validate that we're going to add these to our list. I'll ignore the duplicate URL and click OK, and here we can see the list has been imported. We could manually edit each one and change the settings. Now that I've finished adding my URLs, I can select File, and then Save to XML, and then save the file for later use. I've now created my enterprise site list. I can now load this XML file to a server so it becomes accessible by my devices. If you use group policy, then you must enable enterprise mode in both Edge and Internet Explorer 11 separately. You'll need to enable two group policy objects, as shown on screen, and point the GPO to your site list, which needs to be available on a shared location. Each policy will need to have the path where your site list can be found. This can either be a URL or a file share location such as file server, domain.com site list XML. If you use Microsoft Intune, then you'll need to configure enterprise mode by creating a device configuration profile for your devices, and then provide the site list location. Let's see how to enable Internet Explorer Enterprise Mode. I'll be using Microsoft Intune to do this, and therefore I've logged onto my Microsoft 365 Admin Center. On the left-hand side, I'll click Show All, and then launch the Endpoint Management Admin Center. Under Favorites, I'll select Devices. And then under Policy, I'll select Configuration Profiles. We need to create a new device configuration profile. I'll click Create Profile. I'll provide a name. And in the platform, I'll select Windows 10 and later. In the profile type, I'll configure device restrictions. And this exposes the various restrictions that I can configure. I need to configure the settings for the Microsoft Edge browser. I'll scroll down and highlight the Microsoft Edge browser. There are different settings for the browser available. The ones that I need to select is the Start Experience option. Here we can see the various settings available. I want my users to open Microsoft Edge and have the internet site displayed. I'll paste in my intranet site, and I'll scroll down to expose the other settings. I need to set the Send Internet Traffic to Internet Explorer to Yes. I need to enter my site list location. And this location can be a locally shared file server or a file accessible on the internet. Next, I want to configure message for my users. I want to enable the show message that a site is opened in Internet Explorer 11. This is useful during a pilot phase. Once the settings have been configured, I'll click OK. I'll click OK twice. And then click Create to create the new device configuration profile. The profile must then be assigned to devices within my organization for it to become effective. I'll click Assignments. In the Assign To, I'll drop down and select all devices and then click Save. Once deployed for Microsoft Edge, we'll now refer to the site list to check if websites or web as need to be run using Internet Explorer rather than Microsoft Edge. Once you've configured your site list, you can use a handy setting to test that the site list is working as expected. In a browser window, simply type About Compat, and you can see your list of websites and web apps and their settings. On the right-hand side, you can filter the results by your enterprise site list or the Microsoft Compatibility list. Another useful tool that you can use is the Enterprise Mode Site List Portal. This is an open-source web tool that you can find on GitHub that allows you to manage your enterprise mode site list via a hosted website that your users can then request sites to be added to the list. The two resources that you need to review are the GitHub repository, as shown on screen, which contains all the information and instructions for getting started. And you can also access the Microsoft reference material in docs.microsoft.com at the link shown on screen. Finally, if you use Google Chrome rather than Microsoft Edge, then you can also try out the Chrome version of this tool. This is called the Legacy Browser Support, and you can review this using the link shown on screen.